overhead like that.
Okay.
Alright. So one quick question. Do you buy this sofa specifically for this, or did this come with the space really?
No, so when my family, they were replacing the sofa, then I copied it from home. Yeah, so
I'm just trying to make sure that, because you say that this one might get screwed up, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I stole this sofa from home. So I stole a lot of things. Like, when I move out, right, like I took a lot of things from home. Like every time my mom says she wants to change something, I'm like, oh, can I have that?
Oh, fantastic.
Like the TV, like, oh, okay, can I have the old one?
Yeah, no, I do the same thing, but more like for carousel.
Yeah,
the Singaporeans are too rich, so it's very,
You can get a steal on there.
Yeah, definitely, because there's a lot of people who buy it and then they will use it. So it's like maybe 3 weeks old. It's like for me 30%, 50%.
Oh yeah.
Just one. Yeah. My entire career, if there was no carousel, it would be very different.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I have an Excel that shows that I spent.
So you don't buy like brand new?
Now I do. But perhaps, let's say in my first 7 years, $20,000 worth of equipment, but I only spent because you buy and sell.
2,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Ooh, wow.
So let's say you buy a $1,000 camera, second hand.
Yeah.
You treat it well, so don't be like Casey Neistat, throw it on the ground.
Yeah.
You can sell it for $1,000 if you have really gotten a good deal. I've made profit on the things that I've used for a year.
Wow.
So my actual spending rate for those 5-6 years was only about like 10-15%, which helps a lot. The only problem, of course, is that you have to start small. If your capital is $1,000, you spread it out. So maybe it's $1,000 on camera. You see what you could do with it. Maybe earn $500 from that. You have $1,000 in whole. That thing doesn't actually depreciate because of carousel. If you don't have carousel, then that thing goes to zero. So I'm very grateful that something like this exists.
Amazing, and it helps a lot. Like especially inspire people to do these kind of things, so they don't really have a lot of money to come up and buy these kind of things. Also.
Yeah, and I also think it's just like changes of mindsets. I had conversations before where there are certain lenses. There's because a father had like this is legit. Like a father had his second daughter, so the hobby had to kind of give up, but still want to make sure that you give it to someone that respects it.
Yeah.
And so, and we had that chat also. We met at Coffee Bean because that's where he wanted to deal. And he was like, the doctor is there. And I said, sit down for coffee. Not sure. And we talked for an hour about photography because it is a small community.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah. And I've heard that story also in terms of people trying to buy, sell electric bikes and all those kind of things. So the community forms, and I think it's quite cool that we have that culture in Singapore.
Wow, actually interesting. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
For me, I'm thankful for OnlyFans to support my career. So. Okay. Alright, okay, so before we start, we normally start with this question like, OKJ, do you drink?
I only drink when I'm asked to.
So in the creative industry, right, I know drinking is super prevalent. I'm sure you have a lot of drunk stories. Right? Can you share with us some?
Unfortunately, I have not a single one.
No way.
Yeah, because so the people that I hang out, there are three kinds. There are those who can hold their liquor very well. So I have a group of friends that when in the few times that I come over, because unfortunately I don't have that much of a social life, but for a few times that I come over, they hold their liquor very well. So to be honest, it is really just board games and like talking shit. That's really all that. There's another group of people that cannot take their alcohol
well.
And unfortunately I don't hang out with them anymore because I'm the only person that has to like
to take care of them
and all kind of things.
That's Andy's job when I get drunk.
That's my job.
Right. I don't like alcohol, but fortunately I'm able to hold the tolerance for someone who's a non-drinker.
Okay.
Yeah. So and I've gone to like maybe pubs and clubs when I'm on exchange because I'm forced to go as part of social. Yeah. But in the end I'm the one who like make sure that you want to vomit, make sure your hair is up, make sure everyone gets caught, everyone gets home safe, but I don't have a good time. So I don't go there because and then you have the people who are non-drinkers, and then that's usually who I meet. We meet more for coffee. There was once though, however, in Singapore, this was probably the last time before circuit breaker, I went there and I really didn't want to drink because I don't appreciate the taste. Right. So I went there and I asked for coffee because they had coffee on the menu, had a coffee machine right there. The bartender just laughed at me. I remember that now because it was an auntie, no customers at all. Me and my friend only was there, no customers, and then it's like,
and she laughed at you.
Coffee machine is there, and it's like, basically, bro, this is a bar, why are you ordering coffee? Because like, but it's on the menu. and like the coffee machine is right there. At the end, I just got like
You give up?
No, I just got like water because
water.
I really didn't want to drink that day. I didn't feel right. I didn't want to drink, but she didn't want to serve me coffee. So yeah.
I guess
so don't have that much drunk stories, unfortunately.
From coffee o'clock, you went to beer o'clock. Then it's like, okay, the auntie's not serving you anymore.
Yeah. Just like don't want to entertain.
Okay, well, have you ever considered like doing a documentary on alcoholism? If you think about it, like when people are intoxicated, that's when they are like most real and raw self is like it comes out.
Is it
That
though?
would be very interesting.
Is it their real self, or are they just giving themselves a free pass? Because I've seen some people that yes, they go wild, especially you go overseas. But then I also see other people it's like you're drunk, but I can clearly see you're just giving yourself free passes. I can just say I'm drunk, which
Just using an excuse, right?
yeah, just using an excuse.
Yeah.
I've only been near drunk twice, but even at that line, so I haven't crossed it yet because I like to believe that I have some self-control. But at that line, I was like, oh, suddenly all these shows about, I kissed this girl because I'm drunk. It's like, fuck you, no.
Yeah.
Sex takes a long time.
It's not a one night thing.
It's not a one night thing. It's not like a 1 second thing. Thoughts have been made, bad decisions, but
Intentional.
there is intention. So I'm not too sure whether when they are drunk, people are real. I think maybe their guard are down, but there's definitely intention going on.
On this, I even
True that.
I even should know. Like, if you are drunk, do you still remember what you're doing?
No, actually, to be honest, it may not be real. I mean, like, just create a new persona of myself just
Which
because
he
I'm
does,
drunk.
actually.
Just for the fun of it. So you are right, but isn't it interesting to create a documentary and explore that?
Because
that
Ivan is actually like cocky and arrogant and confident when he's drunk. But the real him is super insecure.
You know Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
The Indian Raj?
Yeah.
Poseidon.
So you need that to kind of like release yourself.
No, but he's super cocky, man.
Oh, okay, I've never seen it, but hopefully one day we get to see it.
and you don't expose me too much.
It's okay, you get drunk all the time, the world sees you very often.
Well, okay, if that's the case, then now because this is probably the first episode after the fact that 10:30 Club has been lifted, I'm not a victim of it because I don't drink. But it seems like for a lot of my friends, where nightlife is part of their culture, it's like, 2 years dry spell like that, but finally they can go out. So like, does that matter for you all a lot? The fact that now you all can drink after 10:30, which means that you can probably hang out more outside.
Definitely. I think the main
boat as you.
I'm in the same boat as you. Clearly, we are not drinkers.
guys, like the main thing is live music. Like when you drink without music, like the vibes isn't there. Now with live music, right? Like the whole atmosphere and vibes is just so much more happening. It's so much more awesome.
See, that's
I
right,
really miss
because
it.
I'm making a documentary about the feeling of music, and I've been sober the entire time.
Damn, burn Ivan.
No, I can understand.
It's not burn.
Why I feel like it's just not the only part.
Yeah. Okay, but to be honest, right? Like I used to stay up at like 2-3 a.m. and drink, and then don't remember what happened, and the next day go back to work. That's before COVID. Now, I drink like 1-2 pints. I'm wasted already. My tolerance is down. I'm weak now.
Do you feel ashamed?
I'm not ashamed, but I acknowledge that I'm weaker now, guys. My prowess is
Now, why do you think then that the generation before, so like my father knows how to hold his alcohol, and I've been like, let's say I did a short documentary in Cambodia, so naturally as part of the social culture there, sun goes down, beer comes out. I don't drink, but I can drink. So you have 24 cans. I drink 3 cans only because, to be honest, I don't even like fizzy drinks. So I don't like. But on my 3rd can, this farmer already drank 9. He drinks 1 gulp per can. Not drunk though, water. And for my father, it's the same as well. Like my father, if you want to get a kick, you need like proper like China wine, right? 50%, 70%, like proper one. But it feels like they can still hold their alcohol well. They say, even when they are young, it's better. But to be honest, I see them now, 60, 70, they can still hold. Why do you think that's the case?
It's a habit that you build up over time, and if you persist in it and never give up, you will succeed.
Nice.
In your
Maybe I shall cut it now and bring it back to the main topic. I think we focus too much on the drunk part already. So anyway, today our guest here, for those who don't know, is actually OKJ. And his friend was introduced by Aldrich, one of my also close friend, a fantastic guy. So yeah, today OKJ, the spotlight on you. Basically, OKJ is a Singaporean-based documentary filmmaker, right? And I think we just want to know more about this whole industry as a whole. So like Singaporean storytellers and creators, I feel are very underrated in Singapore. I don't really hear many of them around. And not too sure if it's like a culture thing or something. But things don't often get blown up or go viral in the way you expect. Yeah. So maybe before we go deeper, can you support a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, so I do documentaries, as you rightly pointed out. I've been doing documentaries started this journey for about 9 years.
9 years?
9 years really.
In uni? Or?
No, so if you want to think about my origin story, it is basically, we have to start off from two starting points. The first one is that I'm a risk-averse person.
Oh, okay.
So we have that first. And then the second one is I am talkative but I'm not very good at communicating. So I'm someone that likes to talk to strangers, but there's also a reason why I like to talk to strangers is because I feel like if I make mistakes as a stranger, I don't need to meet you the next day.
Oh, okay.
So that's the weird thing because I don't have that many like friends or acquaintances in primary and secondary school.
Okay.
Someone who is talkative but someone who doesn't know how to communicate, it means that you're going to get misunderstood a lot.
Okay.
And when you get misunderstood a lot in school, that tends to lead to cases of bullying or low self-esteem. But I still like to talk, so I just keep digging the hole for myself. And I kind of feel like that is the reason why, even when I was young, for as much as I watched SpongeBob SquarePants and like Fairy Godparents, I also watch like National Geographic and Discovery Channel. So I've been through all the documentaries even now. And I think it's because when you see Sir David Attenborough or Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, it's like, oh, these people can speak so well. And
exactly.
1 hour I can tell you about the universe or whatever. And my take is always if I can put a HDMI cable inside my head, I can tell you what I'm speaking. Because for some reason I can't put the words out. I'm too long-winded. I am not attractive enough to do what I need to do justice to the story. Fast forwarding to before NS, because I went to Polytechnic doing hospitality.
Okay.
So you think the only reason why I did hospitality was because no matter what I choose to do, I knew for sure that it had to be in a world of people. So I had to improve my interpersonal.
You really knew that you like to talk to people.
No, I had to improve my interpersonal skill. So I feel like that is the reason why I couldn't hold my own in my conversations.
Okay.
So, but I didn't want to go to a hotel. So there was a 6 months period, and this is actually very fortunate because all my peers, I think except for me, went in 3 months after they graduated from poly. For some reason, I was placed in the November batch, which was very important because that means for 6 months, I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? Go army only.
Yeah.
I failed an interview at NUS, and this was to get into the university scholars program.
Okay.
And the lady immediately tell me, is like, okay, you confirm cannot make it already. Why not you improve on your writing? I took it to heart because I took it kindly because I knew that I didn't do well, even though I am someone who, to be honest, aces their interviews, but with strangers once again.
Yeah.
So I was like, what should I write about? Maybe I should write about documentary. I wrote 2 articles about documentary. A friend from the hotel industry, we connected on Facebook because she said like, hey, you're writing about documentaries. You know, I'm writing for a company that does like tech reviews, and I'm someone that loves their gadgets, phones, laptops, and what have you. Maybe you can write Clearly, you are really writing these articles. I learned that apparently when I went there for my first PR event, and this is I think for LG or EA or something, that no Singaporeans come on time for these kinds of things.
Okay.
I went there on time because that's what I do. And that means for the next 15 minutes, I was there alone with a team of 4 or 5 PR personnel. Told them the story that I'm telling you now. And then she said, you know that we also represent BBC Earth. So it's like, wait, hold up. So what's going on? Then
the stars are aligning.
Yeah, so then I started to understand that, because Singapore is such a globalized industry, there's a lot of headquarters here. So Nat Geo is here, Discovery Channel is here. They may not make their content here, but their regional headquarters is here to market it.
Yeah.
So when I was in NS, kept my ear close to the ground because I didn't have money to spend on cameras. And I started writing for them, going for Nat Geo live events. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson that I mentioned to you about, I met him live at the Art Science Museum.
Nice.
Which was fantastic because now it's getting real. But I didn't think about making documentaries because, like as you rightly pointed out, it's like there are no role models. Like yes, we had like maybe Jack Neo and like we have Bu Jun Fong and all those. So in the art scene, there's still a little bit, not much.
Yeah.
But in the documentary scene, I haven't heard of any documentary filmmakers in Singapore that have been commercially successful. There are some, they usually do politics and all kind of things. So, but that didn't stop me, and we can dive into like why later. But effectively, I was like, let me make something out of this. Let me start writing, maybe I can support them. I don't even know how to shoot photos and all that, so maybe I'll just write.
Yeah.
Went into NUS, now I'm in Tembusu College, which is most important. This whole thing has serendipity written all over it. But I went into NUS to the neighbor of USP, which rejected me, which was the best blessing because I didn't hear about Tembusu College at the time. The moment I heard about it, sign up, I got in because I knew that was the place I belonged to. 4 weeks in, they announced that they're going to send a group of people to Komodo National Park. I was like, you're going to send people to that's Animal Planet shit.
Yeah.
So I got the board, put my name in the hat,
And you got it.
out of 600 people, I was the only one who expressed interest.
As no one wanted to go to Komodo.
Yeah, I was the only one who expressed interest. Long story short, it is because all the seniors had a sour taste in their mouth from the previous expedition that was overpromised and under-delivered. So all the seniors didn't want to go. And all of my year one, my peers, didn't get the memo because it was more of a passing thing when they were saying, because there were so many things being announced.
Okay.
I just so happened to get hooked on the Komodo thing. So they were like, okay, this is your deal to express interest. You either take it on as your own or we have to scrap it. I thought about it for 15 minutes. This is 4 weeks in of a brand new life. I was like, no, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
So I grabbed it, I repackaged it. 2 weeks later, I got 28 people involved. And then for the next 11 months, we planned what was at that point in time the biggest expedition of our lives. 12 days across 4 islands in Indonesia.
That's amazing. Wow.
Discovering and appreciating the complexities of nature conservation from the government all the way to the social entrepreneur and everyone in between. And we made a documentary about it that is partially funded by the organizations because they are already spending so much money on expedition, which universities usually do. Pump it out a little bit more so that not only can up to 30 people who go there benefit from it, but the 500 plus people who didn't go for the expedition can get to benefit from it, and also the people who went for the film festivals who watched it.
Right.
And the first film festival that I was accepted into was the Singapore Eco Film Festival, the first edition, which was held at the Art Science Museum.
Cool.
That's pretty
Bounce it up.
crazy.
Sounds like an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Like during our age at that period, 6 months without doing anything, what would we do? Like play games, right? Let's army play games, right? Let's play WoW and Dota and all that shit.
Yeah, no, I still play Maple Story, bro.
Oh, but when you who 28 people to go on this expedition?
90% of them were year ones. I because for me, I didn't know why there wasn't any interest, so it was easy. And the 28 people is shortlisted. There's more than 30 people that applied, and then after that, so we did the interviews and all that. I want to preface the fact that Army did help me a lot because the particular role that I worked in Army, being a military police, taught me a lot about these kind of like organizational things, and I've gone through enough interviews to know how to interview other people. So like I'm still in touch with my internship supervisor from Polytechnic even to this day. We just met at Chinese New Year, so we have that bond, and a lot of these kind of like mentors over the years taught me quite a lot.
But basically, they are like Singaporeans. They are keen to join. It's just that they didn't find out about this until sort of brought it up to light that there's an expedition going on.
Based on my memory, half of I would say maybe 40% of them knew that they wanted to be part of this the moment they saw. They just didn't saw them. There were another 40% that I would say no. The remainder was more like hooked, whereby like we are doing something special over here. Because the context over here was that while Tembusu initiated this for the main funder, which is what they call a student study trip for enrichment and engagement, all these kind of like lousy acronyms that Singapore likes to use. This steer trip by the International Relations Office in NUS, this would be their first student-led expedition in all 6 years. Because usually it is led by a professor or by a faculty. Now we had a professor by the name of John Van Wy who lent his expertise. He is one of the world's most renowned authorities when it comes to Darwin and evolution and all those, and he's the one that helped us to get some pointers in terms of where we should start. But it was all student-led. The funding, the direction, the accounting. So I think some people just came on because it's like a blank slate. You could try things out. I had a year 3 senior that loves accounting. Like loves accounting.
Wow, okay.
So because for us, we knew what were the responsibilities. Because we are the first, we are going to be judged on whether they are going to support this for future generations. So we have to not just do a good job for ourselves, but for whoever may come after us. So we made sure that there was a system, that there were rules in place. So like my accounting guy really set up a fund such that when I sign off, because I'm the project director, the finance director also gets to sign off. So there's always like who signed off, and we had that kind of things.
Wow.
We packaged it up so that if anyone wanted to learn from our mistakes or not to repeat the mistakes that are not worth repeating, like that's fine. And it's also cool that after the fact, we saw that there was a wave of student-led expeditions for at least about the next 4 or 5 years before about 2019.
Really influenced. I think you also created the SOP for it in many ways.
I think based on, because I asked, I think nobody ended up using the SOP. But I think the people were inspired by the fact that we were able to make this work and that they could do it too. And that's kind of the beauty about the colleges within Utah, is that they give the students a lot of autonomy to do what they want. So even though they may not be the first and all that, they feel like they are the first. The same way as technically we are not the first expedition. Someone did, even though it's a bad job, someone did come before us, but we felt that we could make it our own, and I think that's kind of the real empowerment.
That's important.
Yeah.
Bringing it to the first point, like, so this is where you spark your interest in documentaries. When you go on this expedition, you realize, wow, you're really interested in this.
I knew that I was interested. I knew that I was interested in making documentaries, but my initial plan was after NUS. Because I was studying business in the US, so I had no business in making documentaries. I was thinking about supporting it through other endeavors. But when you have a chance to go to Boulder National Park, I was like, why not?
Yeah.
But what happened over there, which led to my second documentary, is that if I show you that documentary now, honest to God, it sucks.
Why?
It's a miracle that we got it done. Because it's a ragtag team. You have a director that has never made a film before, never done an overseas expedition before, never shot an overseas film before. There is no pedigree as to why this should even be made. We have 2 cameramen who is only there because they know how to shoot photos, and shooting photos is very different from shooting videos.
Yeah.
Our sound guy is only because he's an audiophile and he's muscular, so he can hold a boom mic.
Muscular.
Right? And my drone operator is because he's an actual pilot. Like that's it. So, like, you can fly planes,
It's
right?
like a makeshift team, right?
It's a whole like ragtag team. But we also managed to convince some people, like my director of photography of that film, who works with me till this day. The only reason why he came on board is like we tried at Starbucks, which was the first time that we met from a mutual friend, and then he was like, "Well, this guy sell one because why would this guy with no prior experience whatsoever decide to go overseas for 12 days and make a documentary?" So I was like, I love it, but I'm also scared at the same time. And to be honest, we nearly died on the trip itself because all the plans were out the window. We had 12 days, the 4 days was like utter shit, even for the expedition standpoint, so we did not know whether we could get things made. There were a lot of sound errors and all that, but we made it work. Like there was a tangible product. But for me, my personal belief, and I don't do documentary just out of passion, is that I need to find something that I'm innately good at, and then I'll work hard on it. That's what I define people who are lucky enough to be successful in life. That's what they find. So I feel like Roger Federer found tennis early and then worked hard on it. Someone else who be at his age worked hard on it, maybe not be like Roger Federer because there's innate talent, and I believe that these kind of things exist. So I had to tell myself whether I had what it takes. If not, I should do something else with what I have in me and then work hard on that. And the only way to find out was basically to make another documentary, because they cut out all the noise and all the bullshit. Let me do a documentary, no project, expedition, whatever. Me, myself and I, what can I do? And then at the end of it, I will know whether I have what it takes to be a documentary storyteller.
So you went online to find like how to make a proper documentary, or like say a school you attended on.
So I did go online in terms of just Google how to tell a good story. One of the first things that came up was a Pixar masterclass. And in the Pixar masterclass, I only watched 1 episode. But it's good enough already. That goes to show how Pixar is legendary, which was how to make a good story is just a snippet. Yeah. But I always remember that there was an animator from Monsters Inc.
Okay.
And Monsters Inc., if you all have watched it before, yeah, right. Quick summary is that there's the girl as well as blue and all that, and then they have that relationship, which is very much like a father-daughter relationship. And the reason why it felt so strong was because some of the animators inside there were recent fathers, not fathers like just born while doing production.
Wow.
So one of the key things was find something that you are in your current life in a position to tell a story that other people cannot. Now this was 2017, and 2017 the teas market was about to close down. Now the teas market was something that is close to my heart because my early childhood, even though I didn't know it at the time, was very close to me because some of my first toys came from there, and my primary school is adjacent to it, so it's a part of my life which I forgot as I grew older, just like everyone else. Tembusu had a negotiation workshop that most people love to sign up. It's a 3-day workshop that, to be honest, would change your life. It did change mine, especially in terms of how I operate and how I listen to other people.
Okay.
The first assignment before you go for that workshop, which is exclusive, only about like 30-40 people can go every semester. You have to go to the teas market to negotiate for something, bring back and tell a story. Now this was obviously the last time that they could do that because it was going to close down. But that sparked an interest where the professor who organized that workshop was like, hey, maybe you think about making a documentary about the teas market. He didn't know about my past, but I started thinking it's like, yeah, I mean, I have personal history to it, learning from Pixar. Let me think about it. And as I thought about it, something became very clear. I was listening to mainstream media, I was listening to alternative voices as well, and there's a lot of conversations about the teas market, but using it more to justify their own viewpoints. And when I hear it as someone who has been there before, and both my father and my father-in-law has such deep relationships to the teas market, I was like, wait, everyone is talking using the teas market as a subject for their own debate points, but no one is talking about a place that it would likely go very, very soon. And in university, when we are writing our thesis papers, one of the things that I learned in uni is that if you want to add to a conversation, you can do two things. Find a gap in the public discourse, or to do better than what other people are doing. And I found a gap in this public discourse was everyone was talking around the teas market, but no one was talking about the teas market. And so I wanted to make a documentary that encapsulated that so that future generations can live through the teas market experience where now it's just a patch of grass and fences.
Sorry, can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
Do any of you actually heard of teas market before today?
No, so that was the first time. First time I'm hearing about it when I saw the documentary.
Same. I didn't know there was such a place called teas market. Previously known as Sungai Road, correct?
It's still, so Sungai Road, it goes by many names, but the Sungai Road Teas Market will like be the full one, and then it depends on which era, they have like different points.
But it was very interesting, like I was like, oh wow, I didn't know this aspect of Singapore was present, and it was a pity that it's gone by the time I saw the documentary.
I think it's great that you really identify that everyone was really tiptoeing around the subject and then go directly into it.
Yeah, that was at least what I identified, whereby, okay, clearly some of the stories didn't tally with what I have experienced myself and what my parents have experienced. So something was off. So I was like, okay, clearly if this place was gone, which once the government made a decision, you're likely going to follow through with it. What's the next best thing? And I felt like a documentary helps with that. And so that became the hill that I wanted to die on. Can I make a documentary that will do justice to this place, such that when it is gone, when people watch this, people can still feel like they have traveled back? Goes back to this whole story of applying a HDMI cable inside my head, because I don't think that you putting a plaque over there stating this was what it used to be will do justice to the story. I don't think a PowerPoint will do justice to this market. I don't think a written column will do justice to it. Since we don't have this HDMI technology, then the documentary is kind of the next best thing.
Another fun fact for those of you who don't know, OKJ actually won an award for this documentary in 2019, right?
Yeah.
There's what is it?
The National Youth Film Awards.
National Youth Film Awards. Wow, and there are many other projects around, but you are the one who won the first place.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I'm quite fortunate about like these kinds of things. The National Youth Film Awards, like shout out to them because I think they are trying to keep themselves relevant to be like a trampoline for content creators like myself. I knew them when we did the first documentary, which we were also fortunate in winning because at that time there was a very weird one whereby National Youth Film Awards used to be just for media students. Right. But then that year when I entered there where my documentary wasn't very good, but I'm competing with other people that wasn't like professionally trained, and we won that one. And 2 years later, with the East Market, we're fortunate enough to win for best documentary as well as best sound design. So sound is so important. Yeah.
When did exactly you start OKJ Works?
So before that, it was known as OKJ Discoveries. I'm very bad at names, and OKJ Discoveries is such a mouthful. OKJ Works, how it changed to OKJ Works was after I made the East Market documentary. Yeah. Making Trespass, which is the name of the East Market documentary, was a rather difficult experience when you see it together with my uni commitments. I've made it a point that when I was in university to make sure that my own ambitions doesn't get in the way of my peers and my classmates' learning experience. And we have group projects. Yeah. And I kind of despise people who put their ambitions in front of their team work, basically.
Okay.
Right, because it's selfish, basically. It is. I did the Peace Market documentary on the 3rd year, and I was spent. I knew that I hit my limit. I tried my best to increase my capacity. Like, that was all that I was doing in national service. I worked the best that I can when I was in national service, while at the same time learning about documentary, because I knew that while I'm going to start to explore my own ambition, I had enough capacity to do what I need to do when it comes to NUS, because I'm not paying my own school fees to get B's and C's. I'm not that kind of a person. But I knew that, like, that's it really. I have to make a choice because year 4 is FYP, right? Not the TikTok, but like final year project. And I'm going to be dead. Yeah. So I made a decision whereby, I think I'll drop honours. So just before I dropped my honours, I had the opportunity to go to Canada for student exchange, and I also timed it because I wanted to submit Trespass to international film festivals. I really hoped that it could have gotten selected because I saw that it was clearly a better film than my first documentary. How I know that, I always bring up this example, was that a father came to me asking me for a private link because his father is bedridden and wanted to see the East Market for the last time but couldn't. Wow. And when he watched the film and said that I'm thankful that you made this because you really captured it in the way that I remember it. So now I know I have some innate talent really, but the problem was that I still didn't know some of the specificities. I didn't know that in short films, when you submit for short film, they say short films are 30 minutes or under. You're never supposed to submit a 30-minute film. You're supposed to submit like 8 minutes or 10 minutes because it is difficult to program 30 minutes when you can put 2 or even 3 films. So you have to be damn good. And while I think it's a good film, I don't think it's a damn good film. So it didn't get submitted to any film festival. I spent $1,000 submitting this to well over 50 film festivals. Didn't get to anywhere except for semi-finalists at the Guangzhou International Documentary Film Festival, which I couldn't go. Like, they just sent an email stating I got in. I was like, oh yeah. And the National Youth Film Awards. But everywhere else I got rejected. But I purposely planned my exchange to go to Canada so that I could potentially be there if it was selected. So even though it was not selected, I went there as a guest, as a student, because there is master classes and all that. And I went there. I watched as many documentaries as I could. To be honest, in Canada there's the International Hot Dogs Film Festival. It is something that I hope that I can go back now that especially COVID is over. I didn't have any money then, so I was eating Subway footlong, whatever that was the cheapest, so that I had one for breakfast, one for lunch. I had the free coffee that they delivered, and then I just watched their documentaries from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They just kept doing that for about like 11, 12 days. And I got to talk to people who are queuing up. And what's interesting is that the people who were queuing up, some of them were fans, some of them were documentary producers. Talked to a few of them, it's like, oh, you made the thing that I saw when I was a kid on the Discovery Channel. You made how it's made. You made like Mike Rowe's like Dirty Jobs. And we exchanged contacts. These are people 50, 60-year-old. Yeah, so it was fantastic to learn from that. So even though I didn't win anything apart from the National Youth Film Awards, I learned so much from there that when I came back, I was like, okay, it's time. I think that since I dropped honours really, let's my time extension is up. I went to university so that it is get the time extension, get the grant so that I can like, focus on this. But now like that's over.
And all this is all personally funded, right? There's
yes.
No one else that help you get funds for this. You funded this yourself?
Yes, but I also have Good Samaritans. I my first few projects was because there was Carousel, which we spoke before we started rolling, where if it's not for these kinds of technologies, it will be difficult for someone like me to gain access to this kind of equipment, because there are people that are willing to sell at a reasonable price, and if you maintain it, you can sell it back again at the same reasonable price or just a little bit of depreciation. So the cost isn't that high. But also there were people who, like, because they believed in my vision or they wanted to just place a bet on someone, they lent me their equipment.
Awesome.
No fees, no charges, sometimes no question. So we tried to get as much things from NUS in terms of filming equipment, but we couldn't get like the microphones and all that. And I just had a friend who I met from another project, and I was like, I have this mic. It's a $600 mic, which is wow, you really are. Like, remember, my sound guy is someone who is muscular and not an actual sound guy. You really want to show that equipment is meant to be used.
That's very nice.
And the only thing I even though he didn't say it, I believe in the fact of paying it forward. So sometimes I do this now for people that I meet along the way, just to help out.
Awesome, man. I mean, you've got a good philosophy. You're definitely disciplined. You give yourself a checklist. You stick to it, which is
I was
very
not sticking to it, but it's like,
I mean, you give yourself a timeline.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, this is my timeline. I hit it. I need to move on. I think that's very important, right? Especially as a creator. Yeah, I think it's quite cool. I mean, you created, like, I was watching Skyscrapers.
Yeah.
I think that one was quite interesting, where you seem to be doing everything. There's acting, talking. There's a bit of animation there as well, and then it seems like you're trying to be a bit of a David Attenborough to Skyscrapers. It really came out in that video.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Those of you who are interested, also, like, all his videos can be found on YouTube, right?
Yes. And when you say all, you must have read my mind, because this year I made it a point whereby progressively some of my previous works, like Trespass and all that, would be available on YouTube in full. Right now they are in scenes,
Snippets, is it?
in snippets, but they'll be up in full sometime this year. I made it a point whereby I think since I'm making better works as well, some of these other works, I rather put it on a library that's given me so much.
Nice.
Because when you have technology like YouTube, that's the place where I learn how to edit, where I learn how to shoot, where I learn about gear reviews and all that. And it's a library that I hope will continue for generations to come. We can talk about Google, how they might, but I think YouTube as a library, like, it isn't really a social media. You don't go to Facebook and TikTok and then search for what was uploaded 13 years ago, but you can do that with YouTube. I am still watching documentaries that has inspired me in 2017, 2015 on YouTube, seeing the great quality and all that. So I want to add to that library.
I'm curious also, like, the previous works, all that you did, the Skyscraper, the Galactic one, the Trespass, it's all based on your own passion, like, it was on commercial based, right? You didn't receive any money for doing it.
Yeah.
They should pay you for Skyscraper.
Exactly.
So
would you ever, like, consider going to commercial? You have so much a wealth of experience in doing this. You also have a big bunch of credibility. Won a lot of awards. Like, have you ever thought going commercial with this?
So I have been doing commercial as well. So my strategy is kind of like wrong. I know that every year, me and the people that work with me, we have limited capacity. And we know that money just doesn't fall from the sky. It's very expensive to make documentaries, especially when we think like big and all those kind of things. So one is that I do commercial and commissioned documentaries. The most recent one was last year, where I did 40 Mila, the International Volunteers Day, which also just so happened to be my first poem-based documentary. So I wrote the poem. So I followed them for a year, and then after that I wrote a poem, and I also, because I filmed them over the year, put the ingredients together to make the documentary. And that documentary, I think, was well received by their community, which is good. And that's why I hope to be able to sustain this. It is that I will use my documentary storytelling skills for these organizations who we see that we have a good fit. They want their stories to be told, and told well, not about like promoting, or it's about capturing something that with documentary is captured well. And then after that, with the money that we earn from that, we will be able to do independent stuff that we either believe in or it's very hard to to fund or get grants for, so that then the cycle repeats itself, whereby then we get more valuable projects because of the work we put in. Because I think commissioners and people who hold these kind of stories and funds, they respect people who have skin in the game. And the fact that I'm willing to put 100% of my own money into Skyscraper, I think I now have a little bit more weight when I talk to maybe HDB or URA, if you're watching, that hey, I'm betting on myself. You're not betting on someone that like doesn't have confidence in putting up their own money on the table.
Maybe you can share with the audience as well with us, like how much does it actually cost to produce a documentary? So the documentary is not something you take on your phone, you take a video. It's more like essentially a mini movie. Right? You need a professional sound guy, you need like really video editing skills, audio skills, you need to carry proper equipment. So is it really very costly to produce a documentary?
So that I think really depends on context. I have to correct you a little bit, whereby the documentary, like any kind of art form, has a spectrum. I've seen documentaries that's just shot on a phone, and usually these are maybe war-based documentaries where the only person who is there is the person with the phone.
Depends on the
lights.
context of the
Based on context. The first most expensive component of a documentary is actually time. Because we are capturing life as it unfolds. We do not know when we are going to shoot or when the shooting ends. Relatively speaking, compared to scripted work or some of the short documentaries you see. Short documentaries are easier, especially now with more like those infotainment kind of things. But the way I like to do my documentaries is that there's a lot of research that goes into it. Like I have documentaries now that maybe we have had the conversation 2 years ago. So let's say Galactic Pain, for instance. Galactic Pain, I've met Ivan 2 years before I made the film. And we're just waiting for the right time for me to get my skills up and for him to have time and all that kind of thing. And it's the same now. I'm talking to people now where we know that we can't make the documentary this year. There is someone who I've met and I've already done research for him in 2019, but I'm only going to do a documentary about him next year. And like this, so 24, 25, there are
planning involved.
I say it's more like an ongoing conversation. It only sounds like planning in retrospective because I think I portray it that way. But I think while we have the end vision in mind, the way to it always differs. I can never plan that, but then there's always a famous saying in business whereby it's not about plan, but the act of planning that gets you to where you want to be, those kind of things. So most expensive is time. Now the next one, obviously, yes, you have money and resources, but the good thing, especially in Singapore, if money is a problem, it's not a problem. There are enough resources if you're able to be diligent enough to learn how to knock on the doors. Grants are actually very accessible in Singapore, but you cannot just say like, oh, I'm lazy, how do I write a grant? Like some people want to find jobs and then they say, I want to write a resume, then
you got to do your own work.
Yeah, you have to do the work. So either you have to do that. I have huge admiration for other people whereby there's this documentary filmmaker who's currently inside NS. I'm very bad with it, unfortunately. But he made a film about the jazz community in Singapore, and I think for some of the places that were closing down. And for him to fund that, he basically did part-time job so that he can rent the equipment. So like you can get you can be resourceful if you have limited resources.
He's a young guy, still in the NS.
Yeah, I think now second year, I think.
Still very young for someone like starting his own project.
Yeah, we have stories whereby I think the younger people are coming up. Like my DP, his name is Jeremy, was just saying like there's this person that's I think like 15 or 16 years old that's already made like 1-2 short films already.
Wow.
Right, at that time you were still doing like stressing about like O-level and all those, but yeah, I'm not sure whether it's a good short film. I've never watched it, but the fact that you went out and did something, you're adding experience to your life. So yeah, just get started early because it takes time.
And I think like because of the exposure for the younger generations nowadays, because last time we don't have social media and all this, right? So every time you see a video, then if it impresses you at a young age, you're like, oh wow, maybe I want to try things out. That's why we're gonna see more of that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. When I was queuing up at the at Toronto for the Hot Dogs International Documentary Film Festival, they feel like we are in the golden age of documentary, because last time when you hear about documentary, you hear about geographic lesson, history lesson. You think about watching it, right? It's all these. It's going to be very tedious, very why watch a documentary? But now with Netflix and all that, it becomes a viable medium. To be honest, based on one statistics, documentary is tied with action. So doing a documentary now is more accessible than it's ever been, and then we can talk about technology as well, because you don't need tens of $1,000s of equipment, unlike the past, because the technology is so limited.
Yes.
People have done documentaries on their phone and edited on their phone as well.
Wow.
Is it going to be any good? It depends. So sometimes when I talk to secondary school students, which I try to, because with my content, I'm also speaking to the next generation, so I'm getting a lot of time in like a comedian like that, get my speaking muscles up, is that it is sometimes not about the equipment that you have, but understanding and respecting both the pros and cons of what you have access to, and then you adapt yourself to it. Why push your equipment so far, knowing that it's going to break, and then after blaming it's like, I should have gotten a more expensive camera. If you understand the equipment enough, you can do wonders with it. But if you push it to somewhere where you know that's clearly not going to be able to go, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And it's very unfair, because then you're going to do one or two things. You're going to say it's very unfair to you because other people are rich, that's why they can do it, and there's some truth to it, so you choose to believe that, or you say that you're not talented enough, which is even worse, because that becomes a very limiting mindset, which is not fair to the person.
Right. I'm just curious, like, is there a difference between like a film that's based off true story versus a documentary? Because nowadays we see a lot of shows which is like based off true story and it's sensationalized. Sensationalized. You guys, I had like 2 cups of whiskey.
And they also sort of craft a narrative, right?
Yeah.
So how much of that crafting before we can say like, yeah, that's not really a docu anymore. It's more of a, I don't know.
Yeah, where's the line lah? Now, okay, before I continue, because it feels like it's only customary that I like join you in something.
Nice.
The 3 of us, and it's like one of you. I'm game for it. It doesn't. We call this like a drunken podcast, and you're the only one drinking. Lonely drinking with a group of friends doesn't feel fun for you.
I have gin whiskey, soju, and I have.
I don't mind soju just because that's kind of the first. Alright. I'm not sure whether you're old. Are you older than me? I'm more than 9'3".
9'1". So
9'1", so you might hear lah. So that means yeah lah.
Alright, let me get you a cup.
Do you want to continue the conversation while he's getting that?
Sure.
So where were we on? Oh yeah, the line. Right? No, this becomes very interesting. Like, I love the fact that there's so many documentaries out now, but there's also a point whereby like the lines are being blurred. One of the documentaries that I'm personally conflicted with is Drive to Survive. You know, F1,
yes.
right? I watched the first 2 seasons, loved it. By the second season, we know that Drive to Survive is also full of shit. Right? The drivers are telling us it's full of shit.
Yeah.
But the reason why I know that is because Drive to Survive captured my imagination enough, whereby now I'm Googling what's the race in Bahrain, what's the race in Saudi Arabia. I know the narratives. So even though it is, I wouldn't consider that a documentary because they warped everything so much. They did their job. I'm someone who are not paying. I'm contributing to the fanfare of F1. I talked to my sister about F1. We didn't think about doing that when F1 came to Singapore. I was like, oh, what's the point of all this?
And I guess these producers only want to make it as entertaining as possible, right? Or like, do you think they have a deeper agenda in mind?
No, I mean they are being paid to basically. I want F1 to be in the mainstream conversation. Obviously, there's context to this. You need the former boss to leave, who didn't believe in social media, and then these new guys come in and all this kind of thing. So that we go into a whole other story, but it got me thinking. It's like, do the ends justify the means? Personally, for me, I know that the ends don't justify the means. Like, my philosophy is to do justice to the story told, which means that there's integrity to it. My documentary subject has to watch this, and I can defend that in court, or more like I can defend it in the court of the people, whereby I see this is like, yeah, thank you for telling my story on my behalf, because I'm a custodian. I don't own the story. I'm the middleman between the person who couldn't tell his or her story to the audience that this story deserves to reach. So that's for me lah. But then we still have this ongoing conversation about where is that line, and
maybe it's just a different category altogether.
yeah, but I know that especially like for us, labels start to mean less and less, and I think for the
Absolutely.
for like the Gen Z, I think like labels, like anyone can just come up with any fucking thing.
More and more.
Yeah, so it's like, what's the meaning of like these kind of words where you just like put something out? So I'm not sure. I don't have a definitive answer for that. But I would like to perhaps just be on the right side of it. So I have to be honest, I can only concentrate on the work that I do. Yeah, but I understand the tension between that by a lot. Yeah.
Nice
Alright,
to
so
hear your opinion on the subject.
This is soju neat. Do you want to turn it into a soju bomb?
I think we need to turn it to a soju bomb, because this is the single biggest shot of soju I've ever seen in my life.
Okay,
What's your tolerance level? Like you say you can handle 3 cans of beer.
No, so basically I think it's more like because I know when to stop. Yeah.
But 3 cans of beer is quite okay, right?
No, yeah. So
Just to share with you, I cannot drink half a can of beer. Like, I'm not kidding you. Yeah, my tolerance is that bad.
bro, we need to train you, man. You need to start training you.
Is already tied to me already.
yeah. Once again, that this is the curiosity of a drunken podcast. Because it sounds like, because if you cannot drink, then you have to drink, so that it really becomes a drunken podcast.
For me, it's I'm drunk on my own thoughts lah. My own energy also. So
also
that's
can lah.
That works. So.
If you can 自嗨, fantastic. Now I can't 自
I don't
嗨.
need to spend money to get high. Come on, high, drink.
So like my family members complain, right? Because when I make drinks for them like gin and tonic,
Yeah.
the ratio is usually a bit too much gin, and not enough tonic. So I guess that's why like the shots are
Cheers, man.
That's why the ratio of the harder liquor part is.
Oh, this is quite interesting. So I've never had soju.
Soju bomb?
Yeah.
It's okay, right? Like soju and beer when
because
you
I
mix
mean you
together.
mixed it with water effectively, so it's like diluted soju.
There's no water. It's just pure soju and beer.
Yeah, no, like tiger beer.
Tiger beer.
doesn't really.
Like surprisingly,
It's quite fruity.
the alcohol content suddenly just like you don't taste alcohol at all. What's the alcohol like? Once
Now
the beer
that,
and
from
the
what
soju.
I've learned, is the dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Right. The first time I went to a club, I was like, they gave like some cocktail, and I drank that through that like uni straw, and then my friend was like, that's how they get you.
Yeah, that's the worst actually.
Yeah.
Don't drink so fast. Right. The straw is like, it's all fruity, they add all these other things, but the alcohol is strong. Those kind of things. So I guess I can get to learn it that way. But I think when your father, like sometimes he introduces to you like 50%, or like when I was in Canada, one of these friends introduced like this. It started with the A, like
Absinthe.
the 70%, like you burn it on fire. Yeah, so we have that kind of thing. That's why these kind of things feel like that lah. There's alcohol.
Supposedly that absinthe, people drink and then you actually get high and see.
He did get high. Kind of, we nearly had to prevent him from going into like the winter forest. He was like, I need to go and catch a bear. I was like, no,
catch a bear.
No. So okay, because I think for me, I don't get the pleasure of being high from drunk. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure why. Like what's the point? Because I don't enjoy not being in control of myself and my actions. But I see some people who purposely drink
Just to get it.
to forget about it, where fuck it. But I was like, that's for me that's not the way to live lah. Not for me lah. Yeah.
Let me explain to you why. So some people, when they end up in this like rat race of an 8 to 5 career, then they're miserable with life. They need some form of escape, and that's after work when they have their alcoholic drink, and that's the way they clear their mind of all the baggage and burden.
After all, you've been jobless for how many months now?
Yeah, but I still love alcohol.
The great resignation got to. Okay, now
Yes,
because
I'm the great
I didn't have a chance to find out more about yours. It doesn't make sense as well coming to your show, which I apologize. So what is this job? I need to know both of you apart from just your names, obviously. But it's like for you, what happened? You quit.
Yes, so I was in a big MNC, like doing corporate work for about 5 years, And then I mean there are ups and downs, but then like you generally every morning you wake up, you kind of like question yourself, why am I putting myself through this, and you hate yourself. So at the end of the day, when you're like most tired and exhausted, that's when a cup of alcohol does the magic.
Which is exactly what we said just now.
Yeah, but like now, as he pointed out, that pressure is gone for months already, but you're still taking the medicine.
Yeah, I mean, at a lot less than before. I mean, it's still an enjoyable habit, I guess. Or I don't want to use the word addiction, but I guess it's quite close. Because it can get quite close. Like sometimes when you go a night without alcohol, you're like, tonight will feel good.
Wow, so you feel like a bit itchy lah. You just need okay.
Yeah, it got to that stage at one point. So I've cut down a lot less now.
But do you drink only because of work?
Yeah, it's just like
now?
No, it can't be.
Nowadays no. Nowadays it's purely just social reason. Last time, like while I was working, like every other day it's just like I need a beer to like just chill.
Well, I thought it was because the girl you like was in the group.
Well,
we
you can
need
have more than one benefit. You can have more than one benefit.
Wait, you need to cut this part. Why she listens?
She won't listen.
No, why she listens? She doesn't know.
Obsessed. I think he was like, I think you got some photo of her on the wall or something like in your room.
Hey, why no? Hey, why if she listens to this episode?
She's your Bella,
No,
Edward.
because she needs to be a bit cocky to think that she's a girl. If she's listening.
Hey, Edward now is Batman now, now Edward now become Batman. Vampire become Batman.
But yet still alone though.
Me?
I would.
Oh,
Batman.
True.
Then what about you? What do you do before you hold the mic?
I'm actually part-time producing for another podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So podcast is your like, is it?
For now, like yeah.
Oh, okay. And have you been?
I've always been very like half. I don't last places because I don't feel that I fit in well there.
You haven't found it lah, whatever it is lah.
Yeah.
Is there a feeling?
So far podcasting is quite something that I enjoy so far.
Oh,
Yeah.
so do you join then the Clubhouse craze, the one that came out like 1-2 years ago? Oh, is it?
I think the iPhone.
Okay, yeah. No, I also enjoyed. So, but I mean, when I saw the thing, it didn't really click for me.
Yeah.
But I'm a talkative person. I was like, I felt it was a fad, and I still think that it is.
It's a fad for sure, man. And then now we can do it on Discord, on Twitter and stuff. So there's no purpose for Clubhouse anymore.
Yeah, like even like for me, like I have the Telegram channel, and even like for Telegram you can do like live stream. Recently you can do like live streaming now, like through OBS. So like you have all these platforms. That's quite interesting. So podcast, that's your thing, but you're still basically finding whatever it is lah.
For now, I mean, I know roughly what I like, what I'm good at. It's just that people don't see it my way as well, so I need to kind of pave my own way.
I see.
Yeah.
Then what about you, bro?
I'm the most boring one here. I'm the 9 to 5 guy.
Well, okay, you just said that you're drunk with your own thoughts. So I'm not sure how you are the most boring person when you open your description like that.
Well, I'm not the most boring when it comes to this stuff conversations. But if you're talking about what I do as a job, then I work in corporate insurance. So it's very very far. So this is like in a way an escape from me. So they need people like you.
One day he's gonna be like the biggest MediaCorp artist.
If you let me see be on the OnlyFans now, then I got that.
I mean, you do have the face for it.
Yeah,
You have the face for it. You already have a gang. Sometimes it's nice to have an entourage, you know.
It's not between 20,000, but
Like
you
you
don't
don't
want
want
to
Yeah. Like 5 years from now, I'll see you Chinese New Year on MediaCorp Channel 8, like singing rap on stage.
No, I think that diminish your value.
Oh, that's what they do. Like once you get famous in MediaCorp, you're
pushing
singing
him
rap.
to do more MediaCorp stuff because he suits MediaCorp.
What, the next version of Kin?
Why not? How about you, OKJ? Like, are you doing this full time now?
Yeah, no, I've been doing this full time, just that I have time extension, so like MS, so that I can learn to build my capacity, and US, because it is basically cheaper to be an entrepreneur while you are in university, if you're able to handle. And to be honest, you get to learn a lot better. I come from NYP studying hospitality, where it is in the school of business, and basically for the first year in NUS, learn about the same things. But the context is that I'm actually running a business. And so I set up my my company, but at the time it was a limited liability partnership.
Okay.
On the same month that I learned what that term was. So after that I went down to my professor, it's like, okay, I'm about to, so I know you're not bound by any of your authorities and whatever is like advice, you're not legally bounded, but I have my first contract coming up and they can't do it with a social, just a solopreneur.
Yeah.
What would you, could you describe to me? So I jumped 2 weeks ahead to like say, okay, so we know we're going to touch on LLP, but we can't do it 2 weeks later, we need it now.
Nice.
So can you give me just a quick crash course and all that, and then after that on that same way I signed up for Accra and all that. And it's nice because then I suddenly realized that when you have context to apply in university, that learning becomes so much more enriching.
Yes.
I think if you ask this to Eldridge, or if you ask any people who are actively applying what they are learning rather than learning because they believe that it's going to be useful even though they can't apply it, it's a very different thing. Yeah, so then that's the thing. But so for me, I'm fortunate enough whereby, okay, not just fortunate, I'm extremely lucky because I've said that if I wasn't innately good in doing this, I would have passed this out already. Maybe I think I can be a salesperson, maybe I work in the same line as you and all that. I was fortunate enough that there's this interest of mine that has touched me intimately. What documentary has done in my life, and I can do that as a practitioner. And so I have also been able to craft out what I define to be how that full-time job looks like. Because I mean, as an entrepreneur, you get to set your own rules, right? Do you want to be like maybe our grandfather's story and make a lot of content, or you want to be like other production houses where there's very little content, but each content is perhaps of higher value? Do you want to work with the government or not with the government? Do you want to work overseas or local? It's all up to you. And fortunately for me, that aspect of dreaming and then executing to that dream is something that's fun for me. I know that it's not fun for some of the people that I've met. It's like, there's too much uncertainty because you do not know whether you're going to get promoted. You promote yourself, and if you don't work, money doesn't come in, especially at the early stages. But I like that challenge.
Right. But I realize you're quite like YOLO, like very risk taker. Like the LLP, you just created it within the month. You learn about it for the Komodo dragon, the island. Like within that 15 minutes, you just decide like, okay, I'm just gonna form a community.
I don't see him.
It's like he just went straight for it. Whenever the opportunity presents, it's like I'm going for it.
I totally disagree.
Okay, then what is it?
I'm gonna have a drink while I appreciate his perspective.
The things that he does, man, and he takes opportunities.
Damn.
But he does it fast. I realize like the time frame which you make your decisions, it's all very quick.
Okay, so let me break it down like this. Because one of my greatest weakness that became my strength if I utilize it well is that I overthink. So I have insomnia at nights because I'm thinking about possibilities. Sometimes the best of it and sometimes the worst of it. Honing it well with a healthy dose of self-awareness, I'm then able to make quick decisions for opportunities that just came up. But the thoughts were done for weeks, if not months and years really. I have already planned on making a documentary 2 years before I entered NUS. The only thing that was a change was that I wanted to do a documentary after I graduated, not 4 weeks in.
Right.
But moving the components forward was okay. It was like, like we can do that. I've thought about it already. It's just that the timeline was different. And that's kind of the illusion every time when I share stories. And I have some friends that are like me as well, where when we talk about it retroactively, wow, it feels like everything is planned out, man. Like everything you set your mind to, you can do it. But it's like, no, that's never the case. My only ambition in life, to be honest, have nothing to do with documentary. My only ambition in life is that I've been fortunate enough to be raised in a family where my parents were capable enough of earning money such that we never worry about the food on the table and in the fridge, that our lights are always on, roof over our heads, and we are happy, cohesive family, playing Monopoly together and all those kinds of things, right? But at the same time, we used to have time. Like our parents give us their time. Like my father is the one that cooked the meals on Sundays we got. And I believe that in Singapore, most families, and you don't get to choose this, you get to experience either have family that parents earn money, because they are so busy earning money, they don't have the time. And some, they are trying to earn and it's not enough, so they don't have the time nor the money, or sometimes they feel like, okay, don't earn so much, but at least we're together. But I had the luxury of having both, and so my own life purpose centers around the fact of, because I get to enjoy this, why shouldn't my own wife and future kids enjoy this as well? I know for a fact that people who are less privileged than I am are going to reach this level, and it feels like a slap to the face if I can't achieve what they are going to achieve, because they are going to work harder than I am, they are more talented. So I have that, and ironically that links to documentary, because I feel like our generation, and I don't think it's a very difficult position to defend, that our generation finds it harder to earn money than our parents' generation. Because the 1980s and all that were easier to have a foothold in Singapore. To get your first house, you can still rely on potentially a single income, those kind of things. But in our time, everyone has a university degree, or most people have. It's harder to earn the same level. And so, after thinking about it, my conclusion for that is that to reach the success of my parents, I have to find something that I am innately good at and then work hard on it. That innate talent just so happened to be documentary. And that's why I'm doing this, even though on the surface level, it doesn't make much sense. Because you wouldn't think about doing a documentary when you're thinking about simply putting food on the table, right? Don't be a property agent or insurance banker, they are now coding, engineering, the next big thing, right?
Money.
Yeah, other ways to get money. Documentary, really, but money isn't the whole thing as well, because my parents knew how to earn money, but they were also great fucking parents. And the reason for that is because they had storied lives. My mom was a regular in the army. My father has a lot of travels to a lot of places, met a lot of interesting people, and I think for me, simply just earning money wouldn't be enough. I want to be able to meet people like you all, meet people that I get to meet only in documentaries, so that I can learn, because the world is too big to be experienced in one lifetime. And last year I had that straight in my face. I was doing a documentary where I featured Peng Siong and C. Kunalan. I'm not sure whether you've heard of these athletes before, but Peng Siong is literally the Joseph Schooling of their generation, and C. Kunalan is basically one of these Singaporeans in our short history. One of the first high-profile interracial relationships during the racial riot. C. Kunalan, if you search, you'll be glad you do if you don't know him already. And because I made a documentary about him, I get to have dinner with him, breakfast with him at his house. And after that, because I'm doing the documentary, I get to borrow his 7 one-of-a-kind family albums, put at my house so that I can look at it, research, tell his story. Now, why would someone at that time, 28 years old, have anything to do with a legend like him? Have his family albums? And that is the gift that documentary can give to me, and then that is the stories that I can tell. That makes me, I hope, a better person, a better husband, a better father and son.
Awesome, man. Well said. I think that's a great way to end off the episode.
I'm glad that helped.
Thanks so much for coming on. Okay. Anything you like to say to the audience?
What I really appreciate this is this is the first time I drank this, and it's quite nice as a social drink as well.
I'm glad you like it.
Apart from that, maybe it's I've succumbed to social media, unfortunately, because one of the things that was done actually yesterday was our first day, whereby I have to, sometimes you can't change the rules. I'm not good enough to change the rules yet. So if you find OKJ works on all the social media, you can find me and some of my works there. TikTok is likely the most exciting for now, because
TikTok.
Currently we are doing what could be, unless other people dispute otherwise, the first original documentary series on TikTok, where it follows my own story. So since the start of the year, I've been relearning Mandarin, because I've taken CLB when I was in secondary school, so dropped Chinese. And next year, I will take my O-level Chinese for the first time. And you get to see me as and now as a full-grown adult, with all the things I've learned, with all the technology that's available to us, learn Chinese and pass this. And along the way, I think we also can, with a spoiler alert, know that the test isn't everything.
Nice.
That
sounds like a fun endeavor. Okay, before you end off, what's the one most favorite documentary that you really love, you want to recommend to everyone, it's a must watch?
I can never answer that question because there's not one that like, sits above the rest.
Okay, we give you three.
No, okay.
Three.
No, but
Three.
I also because I've received the answer so many times, I found a few so that I don't like bitch out on it. Right? The first one is On Her Shoulders. I recommend this, but unfortunately it's very difficult to find because I don't think they put it out online. But On Her Shoulders was the first documentary and that I watched in Seattle where because they captured the subject's story so intimately, I had to sit to the credits just to recover.
Wow.
Because the story makes you feel like the burden that's on the shoulders and you get to feel it throughout the documentary. I was moved by that so much that immediately after I watched it, I went back to my laptop just to send the filmmaker a thank you.
Oh shit.
A thank you note.
Just from this statement, I want to watch it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to find it as well. So if you find it, you can send me a link.
But that's the problem with documentaries, right? Sometimes they can be quite hard to find.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I think distribution is still a thing. So to be honest, I'm like really looking forward to what like Web 3.0 and all that will do for the future of distribution. The other one in terms of because YouTube is such a library, I would say that I really enjoy this documentary by Dota actually. So for the gamers out there, the first documentary I watched was Free to Play, which was an in-house production by Dota. But I love that documentary because I love documentaries that's able to explain to me concepts that I didn't know before I hit play.
Nice.
And I knew Dota, but I never played it. But in that 1.5 hours, I knew why people were excited and was willing to fill the stadiums with it. So we are talking about something. Yeah, I think that is a great one. Then finally, if you want to watch great documentaries, I think in Singapore, going to this place called The Projector, which is I think slowly crafting a niche for themselves of providing access to documentaries that you couldn't otherwise find. I just recommended on my social media yesterday to watch one of the Oscar-nominated films, Flea, which is Oscar nominated for Best Documentary, Best International Film, and Best Animation because the entire documentary was animated.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's fantastic. And then there's so many other documentaries that they put up, and you don't find that in other cinemas, unfortunately.
For sure.
Which is also a bit of a pity because the projector seats are very uncomfortable.
I agree.
It's very uncomfortable. I was like, I don't care about the nostalgia place. I want comfy seats. I want Cathay. I want IMAX. Then show documentary. But yeah, if you put yourself in the give yourself the opportunity to watch a documentary in the cinemas with more than like 2 or 3 people. There are some documentaries that when you watch it like that, it is an experience to behold. Especially, it's like watching Spider-Man No Way Home like that. When you watch it with fans, it's very different from watching with normies.
That's true.
Yeah.
Alright, man. Well said, man.
Thanks for coming. See you guys next week. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.